Welcome to Random Movie Reviews. I'm Nathan, and today we'll be talking about Robocop. Robocop is a 1987 science fiction action film directed by Paul Verhoeven. The story centers around Detroit police officer Alex Murphy, who while on duty is brutally shot to death and then is resurrected by the mega corporation Omni Consumer Products, or OCP, as a super cybernetic police officer known as Robocop. Robocop's sole purpose is to serve the public trust, protect the innocent, and uphold the law. Unbeknownst to the heads of OCP, Murphy still has memories of his once human past, and soon discovers not only who he once was, but also the true evil that lingers in the OCP. Well, as you could probably gather from that synopsis, it sounds like a pretty standard science fiction action film, except for one thing. It's the satire in Robocop that elevates it into one of the smartest films of the 1980s. I still know people who've seen Robocop and see it only as a standard action film, and the satire went completely over their heads, which is kind of mind-boggling to me considering the fact that the satire in this movie is fairly obvious. It's clearly commenting on life in the 1980s during the Reagan era. I mean, this film literally has fake news stories and fake commercials that are commenting on the Cold War and the insanity that was happening during the Reagan administration.
The threat of nuclear confrontation in South Africa escalated today when the ruling white military government of that besieged city-state unveiled a French-made neutron bomb and affirmed its willingness to use the 3-megaton device as the city's last line of defense.
You haven't dismantled your MX stockpile.
Pakistan is threatening my border!
That's it, Buster. No more military aid.
Nuke 'em. Get them before they get you. Another quality home game from Butler Brothers.
As a matter of fact, Paul Verhoeven did not want to direct this movie initially. He received a copy of the script that simply just said Robocop. He said he read the first page and then he threw it in the trash. It was his wife who went back into the trash and read the rest of it and said, I think this is a lot smarter than you realize. And as he read the rest of the script, he's like, okay, I can actually do something with this. We can make something original. But the other brilliant thing about Robocop is that you can watch it as just a standard action science fiction film. The action in this movie is fantastic. The violence is so over the top and at times darkly hysterical.
Dick, I'm very disappointed.
I'm sure it's only a glitch. A temporary setback.
You call this a glitch?
It's a movie that I will always recommend to people who've only seen it once or twice and like, yeah, it's a fun, silly action movie. I always recommend watching it again, going into it knowing that it's meant to be satirical, and then when you watch it with that in mind, it really changes your whole perspective of the film. The film works as a satire, it works as a science fiction action film, it works as a comedy in some parts, and it's a film that I pretty much have no flaws with whatsoever. I think Robocop is essentially a perfect film. One of the subplots of Robocop that really plays up on the satire is the subplot of Delta City. So OCP, this big giant mega corporation, wants to make Delta City, and in order for them to do that, they need to wipe out Detroit. And they need to do that by getting rid of all the crime. So they plan on making robot police officers as a way to militarize the police and give them complete control over everything. So they can keep the rich rich and they can keep the poor poor, which is something the Reagan administration actually did. There was a point in the mid-1980s where Ronald Reagan decided to declare a war on drugs. What this actually did was it gave Reagan the opportunity to militarize the police to the point where they actually had tanks with battling rams ramming into people's homes that they suspected were drug dealers.
In Los Angeles, the war on drugs has so escalated that police last night began using a tank.
They had these tanks, and tanks were like, see a suspected crack house, and they would just ram down the house.
Lawmen said gaining entry through fortified and barred doors too often gave the suspects time to destroy evidence. So, in seconds, part of the house was smashed in, and then a charge thrown to stun those inside.
I remember a big media event was the first ride of the Batarram, and Nancy Reagan rode shotgun.
You wish that somehow somebody could have gotten a hold of them sooner.
So you had Nancy Reagan sitting next to Daryl Gates conducting what was in essence urban warfare.
It just got scandalous.
It also gave the Reagan administration full power to arrest anybody with any sort of drug on them and give them really crazy harsh prison sentences. So when you go into Robocop realizing that it's commenting on that, on capitalism, on the Cold War, it really makes this movie one of the most smart satires that I have ever seen. And of course, the violence in this movie is freaking fantastic. Anytime I see new action movies and they're using CGI blood, I can't help but just smack my head and be like, what are you doing? Squibs are the way to go. Squibs are the best. Always use squibs.
Somebody want to call a goddamn paramedic?
I pretty much love everything about this film. It's a film that I use in order to judge how people watch a movie. Robocop will either determine how people view it on a surface level or if they view it on a deep, more thematic level. And I recommend to people who have only seen Robocop a few times and see it as a silly action film, watch it again, realize that it's meant to be a satire. Just go with that in mind. I think it'll change your entire perspective of the film. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I'm planning on doing some more standalone reviews soon, and I'm gonna do some more Criterion reviews. It's gonna take some time, but I'll get to it. And yeah. That's it.